Hi there, I'm Jaime. I am the co-owner and director of operations for a real estate sales team and investment team here in Jacksonville, Florida. If you're not in Jacksonville or if you're not in Florida, the tactics that I'm going to teach you in this class are pretty applicable in each market, and we'll go over some of the differences depending on what state you're in. Jumping into who I am, and my partner Carrie runs the sales team here in Jacksonville, Florida. We flipped over 100 homes in our area. We've bought and sold thousands of homes for customers, builders, developers, hedge funds, institutions, you name it. Almost every process that you can think of, we've had to build, retool, and make a strong operations backing for it. I started in 2007, best market ever to get into real estate, right? Never had the intentions of becoming a realtor. So we've got the sales side, the investment side, and then a software consulting thing that we also do, or that I also do. But Carrie primarily runs all things retail, builder, developer. If you're selling your house, you're probably going to end up, working or talking with her. So you're probably thinking, why is this guy teaching this in direct competition of what they do? Well, truthfully, I believe that the real estate industry is ready for disruption in kind of a big way that's going to separate the real players from the fake ones. And so I don't think that really affects us very much. But why is it going to be disrupted? Well, real estate agency, and if you're a customer thinking about selling your house on your own, a lot of these reasons are probably reasons you're looking to sell your house on your own, right? It's a business that rewards being loud over being proficient. There's a really low bar of entry in Florida. In order to become a barber, I think you need over 1,000 hours to get a license. But for real estate, it's under 70 hours. So, and not to say that hair is not important, it's extremely important. But in some cases, buying a house, even if it's the only one, certain people buy in their lifetime, it is probably one of the biggest financial decisions they're going to make. You probably need more than 70 hours, right? And that puts customers in a bad spot, which in my opinion leaves the industry open for disruption. It creates a cycle of negative outcome. So that's kind of why we wanted to put this out there and why I'm teaching the class. So if you do work with an agent, there's two things to look at, and this kind of relates to the previous slide. Let's talk about the first one, which is a flat fee brokerage is not the same thing as a flat fee listing. So if you are Googling, because later on I'm going to show you how to get your house into MLS and give you a couple options for that. If you Google it the wrong way, you're going to end up getting a flat fee brokerage versus a flat fee listing. The thing with a flat fee brokerage, it's not great for you either, because a lot of times they claim that they're like 100% brokerages to the agents, and that's how they sell themselves to the agents. And in exchange for no whatever cap or percentage, right, of the revenue from the commission, they're paying a flat fee. And it's usually in small letters, and like in my market, there's one that's like 0.025% of the sales price, not of the commission, of the sales price. So, and it's in like really tiny letters, and it's like a flat fee. Well, they can either transfer that flat fee to the customer, which eventually people find out and then they stop, right? It's like an ethical thing, right? It's like, it always reminds me of Enron, or like somebody skimming off the top until somebody like realizes it. So, and the problem with that is that if most of your top producers are not going to be there, and if they are, it's a pretty big red flag, because if you did the math to figure out the comparison between one of these flat fee brokerages and like a top tier like household name, they're actually paying more money, which is scary for you, because if they can't do math for their own income, what makes you think they're going to be able to do it for your closing statement, right? And then the other part of it is beware of the top producer numbers, right? I actually say this from experience, and I'll kind of go into it. The top producer numbers get pulled out of two places. They get pulled from sales volume and transaction count, right? And how do you, if you're in any major industry, you kind of know how to fluff the numbers, if you will. How do I push the sales numbers or revenue numbers or profit numbers to make them look like whatever I need to? In real estate agency, the way you get to those numbers is by buying customer data. And you're like, is there some secret place that sells customer data? It's actually not that secret. Every time you go to Zillow, your information is being sold to real estate agents that are chasing those numbers. How do I know? Because we did it for 2 years. The reward there for the time isn't really worth it, but it does feel nice to get like Business Journal awards and Wall Street Journal awards. But the thing is that in order to be one of those top producers, do you have to understand economics? No. Do you have to be good at any type of finance? No. Do you have to truly understand how to market someone's home? No, because most of the customer data you're buying is buyer information, not seller information. What do you have to do to get those numbers? And if you actually look into real estate agent education, it's not economics, finance, or marketing. Not marketing for the customer's sake, but marketing for themselves from a self-promotion standpoint. So do you have to be good at converting, these inbound leads? Yes. Do you have to have like a good CRM? Yes. But again, you don't have to be good at the financial aspect of it. So that's the only thing with, the top producer numbers. You can kind of buy your way in. And if you are looking at one of these agents, how do you separate the two? Ask one question. What percentage, especially if you're selling, what percentage of homes in the last 12 months have been sellers versus buyers, right? 50-50 is good. Our number is like 80-20 because we're not buying a lot of that customer data. Once you start, 50-50 is not great, but it's also not bad, But if you start getting into that 60% number where it's buyers, if they tell you the truth, that's going to be a pretty big red flag. They're not being referred, they're buying the information. So, and again, I say that with complete transparency that we did that for about 2 years and we got those awards. However, we did work with a lot of sellers at the same time, so our percentages were still pretty good. Not to say that some of the top producers in your market aren't the real deal. I'm just telling you that the majority probably aren't. So in our market, there's very few of the ones that are at the top of the list that I would say I would let that person list my house, right? So just keep that in mind for, food for thought. All right, so who needs an agent and who doesn't? Frankly, it boils down to one thing, and that one thing is time, right? If you have the time to do it, do it. Sometimes I wash my own car, sometimes I send it out to be done, right? It depends on where you're at from an investor standpoint, right? So builders and developers, they're spending time on acquisitions from like a land development standpoint. They're working on engineering. They're getting a whole bunch of other things done that having conversations with real estate agents all day is not their highest and best use, right? So they put leverage into place, which would be the real estate agent, to handle that for them. And they need to do a good job. And here's the thing, it's not just about converting leads. Converting leads that come in that translate to revenue for the builder, extremely important. You also need the systems to be able to handle that scale, right? Most people go in to talk to builders or developers and they're like, hey, we take pretty pictures, we have a great social media following, blah, 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 blah. The thing is, nobody cares, right? Can you process this and can you scale? That's the real question. Investors that are focused on acquisitions, if you are kind of middle of the road from an investor standpoint, or even like potentially if you're just starting out, you can list on your own. I wouldn't totally recommend it, but you can if you do all the steps that I'm telling you. If you're an investor that's purely focused on acquisitions right now and you've got something going that's really good, you're kind of like middle of the level, find that leverage because you're kind of in the same place as the builder developer. Now, on both of these sides, if you're big enough to where you can open up an entire department for that and you want to deal with almost another separate business, you can do that. And we've seen a lot of investors and developers eventually create their own departments. We've helped them do it. Busy professionals, if they don't have the time, and you'll see, we'll go into the steps. You might have the time. You're not allowed to pay someone that's not licensed to do it, but maybe your kids would be able to help you. Caveats to doing it on your own. There's some safety concerns. You got to let people into your house. Negotiation. I've had 3 attorneys since 2008 or however long, I've been doing real estate, give up their binders to either me or their seller because of negotiations. And I don't mean like FBI style negotiations. I'll go into it so that you don't fall into the same trap. And then the other caveat is time suck. It's gonna take time, especially if you don't have the systems. But again, I'm gonna show you kind of the basics. You're just doing one house. If you're just selling, your own house, or like one of your renovations, like you'll be able to do this. And maybe even you might even get your license and end up doing it for others too. So getting into pricing the property, it's extremely important that you understand comparables and how they relate to the property. If you're the person that's saying, oh, well, Bob down the street sold his house for $500,000, and you're not really sure of that time frame and it was 9 months ago, you're going to be in trouble, because even today and 6 months ago, the market's completely changed. You want as tight of a window as possible. And I mean that from a geographic standpoint and a time standpoint. Okay? Can you use Zillow? Sure. Just, it's not great, right? A lot of their information is outdated. Don't use estimates, because we've seen in an accelerating market where, you list a property and then the Zillow estimate is like $10,000 higher, but it also works conversely where the market's going down and you list it at the number they tell you today. It's like, this house is worth $300,000. You list it and it's at $290,000. Keep that in mind. There is a link in the comments for the software that we use. You get a 7-day free trial. It is not the MLS, but it is for someone that doesn't have access to it. It's perfect for it. And you get a 7-day free trial. So use it, comp out your numbers, and then you can cancel it. What you want to do is create as tight of a window for geography and for time, right? So 90 days would be the rule. If you don't have at least 2 or 3 comps, you're gonna want to stretch it out a little bit in either time or geography. Now, keep in mind with geography, you can have 2 neighborhoods right next to each other that are nothing alike, right? And the main thing you're looking for is price per square foot. We would have to do another video on running comparables, which we probably will, already have. Check out our playlist or our channel and see if it's on there. But it could be an entire, class of 2 or 3 hours just on this. But just know, geography and time, keep them as tight as possible and you should be okay. All right, so still talking about pricing. So we've got price per square foot, heated, right? If you have extra porch area or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? What is most important to you is price per square foot heated, and everything else is a bonus. Okay, so your 2,000 square foot house, compare it to another 2,000 square foot house, right? What is the price per square foot? Okay, and then you're going to evaluate a couple different circumstances. Condition, is it the same condition? Give it A, B, C, or D, right? If that 2,000 square foot house sold for $200 a square foot and it was built 2 years ago, it's probably an A, right? So on a rating scale, you have A, B, C, D, and F, sure. And then you have new construction, which is a totally different ballgame, which is above A. But you don't want to give it a letter because it's different, right? But if yours is apples to apples, but you have a pool, you're still going to give it the $200 per square foot, right? And you'd want some more supporting evidence there too. But the other thing that you're going to do there, if you have a pool, is you're going to add that on top of it. So will your price per square foot go up? Yes, but you're doing it in kind of an isolated thing. Again, with geography, you have immediate neighborhood and extended neighborhood. Overbuilt, underbuilt. Here's an example of your immediate and extended neighborhood being overbuilt or underbuilt. If you're overbuilt, you have a problem in that if your price per, like the biggest house in your neighborhood has the lowest price per square foot value, right? And then the smallest house in your neighborhood has the highest, dollar per square foot value. The reason for that is because if you overbuild a house, you end up pricing yourself into another neighborhood, right? So if you have the biggest house in the neighborhood, and you've probably heard some people say, don't do that, don't buy that house, right? If you have the biggest house in the neighborhood and you start going toe to toe with other neighborhoods, the buyer consensus is usually, I'll take a slightly smaller house in what they perceive to be a better neighborhood at the same price. So that's why the bigger house you go, the lower the price per square foot. It almost doesn't even matter if it's in a new construction neighborhood or whatever. Don't get emotional about the pricing. And then the other thing is honeypot pricing. So everything that we pretty much stick to is price per square foot plus variables. So an example would be if everything that is around me that is actively for sale is at around an average of $200 a square foot, right? And let's say I pull my geography is a perfect, tight little neighborhood. And then, I've got 3 or 4 houses. I've got 10 houses total, but I've narrowed it down to 3 that are most like the one that I'm selling. And I take my average and I say, okay, all of these guys are at $200 a square foot. Do I list at 200 and just say emotionally my house is better? That's probably not a good strategy. From a sales standpoint, what we usually do is we'll list it lower on purpose, because what we're trying to do is it's not discounting the property, because what we're trying to do is create a bidding war. You've got 3 other houses in the neighborhood. Yours comes in low. If you price it too low, people are going to think there's something wrong with the house. But if you do it just right, that's why we call it honeypot pricing. It's like the story with the 3 bears with the oatmeal. If you get it just right, you're going to attract a lot of buyers almost, before everybody else does, and you're more likely to dismiss the others. And they're more likely to dismiss the other properties for sale. And the thing is it always going to go into highest and best and get multiple offers? No, but consider the other benefits to doing it. The other 3 houses may have been on the market for 90 days. Those 90 days are 3 months of payments that those sellers have had to make and holding costs, right? And if you're an investor, that matters. It goes against your bottom line, right? Holding time. So maybe you don't create a bidding war, but maybe you sell in 6 days and you don't have the same 90 days. On a $500,000 house, if your holding costs are $2,500 a month, you might as well have just gotten an extra $7,500, right? And lower risk of other stuff happening, right? And it's not $7,500 because you've still got 30 days to close. They still haven't even gone under contract. So consider that. We call it honeypot pricing. There is a program out there called Sold in 82 Hours or something like that. It's the same process, but we've been doing it forever. We didn't know that there was like a name for it. All right, so digital imagery as far as photos, videos, staging. I'm going to go to the dark side on this, on how you can go find properties and get them under market value, okay? You can look for properties that have been expired, and you can look for properties that are listed on their own. And one of the things you're looking for is bad photos. And it's either done by the owner themselves. They took bad photos, they're self-represented, and the property's been on the market for 120 days, you give them a low offer and you might be able to get that property. The other side, which is worse, and we talked about potentially the real estate industry being disrupted, is a licensed real estate agent taking those photos with their iPhone and then putting that out on the market. Again, probably long time on market, and that's a target from an investment standpoint. So if you're looking to buy properties, that's one of the things to look for. And usually if you see a property that's expired on the market, a lot of times their marketing will be really low quality. You don't want to do that, okay? You can hire a photographer in your market. Just literally Google real estate photography near me and you will find that person. They usually offer videography. And then the other thing is staging. If you know you're going to go with staging, the stagers generally know, and you can do real estate staging, right, in your market. They usually have a photographer on staff that's going to highlight what they were trying to do with staging. So keep that in mind when you're going to market. This is extremely important because you want to make the property look as good as possible, right? you might be thinking, why would I go with staging? It's kind of expensive. There are options where you can pay for the staging at closing. They do make you sign a contract. Usually if you have an agent that is offering you staging, they have some sort of relationship where that's what's happening, right? I mean, that's what Carrie does when she's listing your house and you're getting staging. They're making sure, nobody's going to get robbed. Talking about the stager, right? Because they're going to make you sign a contract if they perform this service. But you pay it at closing, so you're not forking out that cash up front. So just keep that in mind. We do staging on all of our renovated properties, flips, everything. It works. We joke that we sell more furniture than houses because people love the staging. But if you're going to do it and you have a vacant house, consider it. Or in the worst case, just consider someone to consult you on getting your house ready for that. Usually the photographers won't do that, but maybe they offer that. But just make sure you're looking for that. All right, so pre-marketing. We talked about that company about selling your house in a few hours. They're basically a referral company that sends, again, customer data, sends your information to agents that are trained in their program. This is the program, right? Build anticipation, try to sell it before the market, and use honeypot pricing. Those are the three things, okay? So how do you build that market anticipation? Pre-marketing. The other thing that pre-marketing does is it allows you to remove the looky-loos and the tire kickers, which are usually your neighbors. They've just never seen your house. Now it's for sale. Now they want to go see it. Would you rather them call you and schedule showings when you're not really prepared and all that stuff? Or would you rather just do an open house and let everybody in at once? Kill a Saturday and it is what it is. Hopefully you get an offer on that Saturday, because if you invite your neighbors and you invite, potential agents, you can create a bottleneck of activity, which is how we what we call launching a property. Carrie will have it scheduled and ready to go Wednesday, Thursday. But most sellers have some things around the house to do on that Thursday and Friday, right? And then the house isn't open until the open house on that Saturday. So it's on the market. And if people are, and I'm going to show you how to get your house on the real market versus just throwing the for sale by owner sign that looks terrible. But what happens is you've got people working, and not doing anything on Friday at 3:30 at their jobs, and then they're just scrolling on their phone. And then if they are in the market, they're scrolling Zillow or they're scrolling one of those websites, realtor.com, and they say, oh, that's an open house. Let's go check that one out. And they send it to their agent. That's what you want on that Friday, because everybody knows end of day Friday gets kind of slow. So that's what you're targeting with that Friday live and that Saturday open house. Okay, so what are you actually saving here? So because of Sherman antitrust laws, there is no standard commission rate. What I have on the slide is an average, okay? It's an average of 6%. When you get into luxury properties, they change. When you get into high volume sales, they change, right? So what you're actually saving is the listing side if you're selling your house on your own. So you're saving that 3%. And you're probably thinking, well, now I'm staging and shooting photos and all that stuff. Yeah, so you're probably saving, let's call it 2%, or depending on however much you negotiate there. So it's 3% minus whatever you're doing on your own, right? Your earned savings are around about 2%, okay? So, but you have to understand there's a difference between listing side and buy side. If you're selling your house on your own to save 6% total because you're trying to go direct to buyer, or you're going, cash for homes, and we advertise cash for homes. We give sellers the option, do you want to list it or do you want to sell it to us directly, right? The reality is that if you're selling it directly, and we tell them this, right? If you're selling it directly, you are giving up something. And usually it's equity in exchange for commission. That's just the reality, right? This class is about teaching you how to sell your house on your own without a realtor the right way, not the wrong way, right? We want you to walk away and be like, that was exhausting, but I saved some money, okay? So when you go to list it, I recommend trying to figure out what that average buy side is, okay? Whether it's 2.5 or 3 or 3.5%, whatever that number is. If you're saving money on the list side and you want to add a little bit of a bonus on the buy side to make yours more appealing, do it. However, if your house is overpriced or it's poorly marketed, none of this matters, okay? So those other two slides, super important. In this case, when you're setting this up, you generally don't want to go too far below the average because of basic human psychology. While there is no requirement or standard or legal standard, right, for what this is, you're still dealing with human psychology that is looking at these listings and they're saying, you know, this new construction builder that I'm showing, because usually buyer's agents are showing customers multiple houses in one day. It's not just yours. They might be looking at new construction. They might be looking at your neighbor's house. They might be looking at another one. A lot of times builders will offer bonuses and they're at 3.5, sometimes even 5%, right? And then you've got your house, right? And you've had a couple things working against you as a listed for sale by owner, which I'll go into. If sometime you can almost, buyer's agents can look at it and almost know the situation. Either it's an inexperienced agent, which isn't going to be fun, or either way, it's a low commission, right? And so when they're looking at it, it's not that they're being unethical. It's truly human psychology where they're saying they're going to earn more. And on the other side of that too, let's say the builder is offering 4 or 5%. That agent now has the benefit of offering their customer a rebate of 1 or 2% or however percentage they want to if they go with them. Think about that. That customer has the choice between your house and a new construction house paying 5%. If that one's at 5, they could offer them money back. That's a pretty big deal for that customer, right? So just keep that in consideration. Make sure if you're running your comps, you're looking at what your competition is. If you're not an agent, you're not going to be able to see what those bonuses and commissions are. I'm just saying that when you set this up, set it up right so that you're not starting off on the wrong foot the moment you go live. Okay, so I'm not a real estate agent. How do I list my house? You've got two options in your market. I don't know if every single market offers this, but you can figure it out and Google it, right? Or Bing it now that it has AI involved. Flat fee listing service. Remember, don't get stuck finding a flat fee brokerage because you're probably going to end up worse off, right? Or you can look up flat fee listing agent and try to find it. Flat fee listing service, there are services out there that allow you to pay $4.99, whatever the number is, right? And they give you access to the documents that you're going to need. And on the MLS, they say call seller directly, right? And then any agents that are interested would basically call you. Now, does your house go up on Zillow? Usually it should because they syndicate to those. But again, you're dealing with those customers aren't going to go to you, right? Zillow is probably the biggest, search engine for properties. They're making money off that customer data. They're not sending it to you. They're sending it to real estate agents, right? So we were talking about that commission. Keep that in mind. Here's the thing. And if I'm going to advocate for one or the other, there's only one reason. Well, there's two reasons. One, when a buyer's agent looks at a listing, they're evaluating a few things. An experienced agent is evaluating a few things. They're looking at commission because that's one thing that's going to, one, it's their income. We're talking about humans here. And then two, they're evaluating where the seller stands, right? It tells you a lot where that number is. And then they're looking at some details. Is it a short sale? Is it a foreclosure? They need to know some things before they go into it. But one of the other things that they look at, again, an experienced agent is who the broker is and who the agent is, okay? Experienced agents, they all generally know each other, whether they like each other or not. They know who's who, okay? And they know who's good, and they know who can be worked, and they know a lot of things, right? Just from those two lines. The other thing they see is it a flat fee listing service? So in our market, when we see that, we're like, okay, this is an advanced for sale by owner. If the photos are bad, you kind of know what you're going into. Is this an investment conversation? However you want to look at it. But the buyer's agent is looking at that and saying, okay, one, assuming that the commission number is in line with everything else, or it looks comparable to the other ones, let's say that, they're still looking at it like this is potentially going to be more work for me because I'm dealing directly with someone who doesn't have a team, structure, all that stuff. So how do you get around that? I'm not saying don't do it. you could try to find a flat fee listing agent. So in some cases, Carrie will do a flat fee listing. You'll get some documents that'll help you in your process, and you'll basically get charged a flat fee for that to go into MLS, but you handle everything, right? And it's case by case. Most agents aren't going to want to do it because it can get noisy. The only benefit to doing it is if you're a good person and not crazy, right? It would make sense to do it for someone, and then if it doesn't work, revisit listing it traditionally, and it kind of helps you kill two birds with one stone. The cool thing is if it's highly desirable, it's priced right, all of that stuff, right? And you do a flat fee listing, great, it's gonna fly off the shelf. The benefit to the agent is they're gonna get leads off of it if they know how to market it. So it's kind of a win-win. You can't ask them to do it for free because there's still some liability for them, right? And so that's just something to keep in mind. In your market, those are gonna be kind of your two options. Okay, disclosures and documents, and I think the next section is negotiations. We talked about how I took 3 attorneys' binders for either myself or for our sellers, and the binder is the amount, the good faith deposit, right? I want to buy this house. These attorneys came in and said that they were self-represented, and because they're attorneys, technically an attorney doesn't have to take the test or doesn't have to take the class in order to get licensed. They just have to take the test, no matter what kind of attorney they are. Real estate, mergers and acquisitions, personal injury attorneys, right, can also take the test. The thing is that usually their specializations in almost anything, these guys were not well-versed in real estate law at all. And the number one rule, I'm not an attorney, but I feel like for real estate agents and for attorneys is read the contract. Understand the timelines, understand all of the disclosure information, and know what the requirements for you to not breach that contract are. What our team does for the benefit of our sellers, right, is we make sure that we stay on top of the timelines and give our sellers leverage. We're not really reminding people of when their inspection periods are done or are required. We're not reminding the other side of that. We do represent the contract, but we're also making sure that the person who hired us is going to get the best outcome one way or another. So make sure you know the timelines. And here's the thing, we talked about this at the beginning of this class. The majority of the agents do not read these contracts. If you know the contract that is going to be used in your market better than them, and I'm telling you, this is real. 80% of these agents can be worked on these contracts because they don't read them and they don't understand them. How do I know? Because we have to send screenshots of contracts that we write and go under contract with to agents on the other side of the table, right? When they're saying, hey, why aren't these repairs done? Well, line 47 says that you have to provide us with a loan approval, which you didn't do. And it also means that you have now lost in this time frame, for this example, you have now lost that financing contingency, and you can say that it's because the repairs haven't been done, but this line says that you have to provide us that approval before we even start repairs. So, and in our market, there's a lot of nuances there, but just know that most of them don't read it. Most buyer's agents don't pull comps for their buyers. The sad reality is that the majority of your agents don't really know what they're doing. Make sure you know the disclosures, the documents, and the timeframes, and you will be great. Again, this isn't about FBI negotiation and like, I want $3,000, I want $4,000 more dollars, I want 20. That's important, but the person that's super focused on that is going to take their eye off the ball, and they're not paying attention to the contract, the timelines, and the disclosures and the contingencies. Understand that. Highest and best highest and best is not a negotiation tactic, but you have to use the timelines to your advantage, right? So let's say you followed our little program here and you went live on MLS on a Thursday or Friday. You did your open house on a Saturday. You've got all these people interested. Now you're staring at 3 contracts, okay? And you don't want to say, I want highest and best due in 2 weeks. You're going to lose all your buyers. right? Time is of the essence here. You're going to want it if you get those 2 or 3 offers on a Saturday or Sunday. First, make sure they're pretty strong. If they're not, you're going to find yourself in an awkward position not having multiple offers. But say you want highest and best due that Monday or Tuesday, preferably a Tuesday or even a Wednesday, because if for some reason they missed the open house or the showings over the weekend and you priced it right and all that, you're going to want to give them that Monday, Tuesday to make sure they're serious about it. It also gives the offers that have been given to you a chance to kind of think it over and make sure they're serious. You'd rather them pull out now than 15 days into a contract, okay? And remember, best does not always mean highest, okay? I can have 4 offers that are all the same price that all net me different numbers, and I'll close on different time frames, and I'll have different contingencies. Know the contract and know the terms that they're sending you, okay? If I can give you one bit of advice for selling your house on your own, and here's the thing, even if you're a real estate agent and you're watching this, like, know this. Read the contract like 5 times forwards and backwards. Don't read it backwards, that'd be weird. But know where the contingencies are and highlight them. Know your different loan types, okay? Again, we were talking about highest and best and what's good or bad. If I have 2 offers and there are 2 different loan types, depending on the age of my house and certain things, one offer may look more attractive than another, okay? If I've got a newer house, all the offers are pretty much the same, but there are some, in our market, there's some government programs that give grant money, but they make the process really, really slow and usually fall through. We actually have a builder that said, hey, we're not taking any contracts if they have this type of grant program because the deals never closed. They stayed under contract for 60 plus days and never closed. The other thing is title company. In our market, the seller pays the majority of the closing costs, so they choose the title company. In most markets, the closing costs are kind of split. Your closing costs are usually about 2% total. So depending on what market you're in, you're at 1, 2, whatever percentage. Figure out what's customary. If you're in a market where you're picking the title company or the closing attorney as a seller, set up that relationship before you go live on the market, because you want to make sure you have someone that's going to be able to transact it, provide the title insurance, have all that stuff, ready to go. And just call them and tell them your situation. Say, hey, I'm selling my house for sale by owner. I'm going to be listing it on MLS, but I'm going to be handling all of everything that goes on. Is there anything I should know, etc. You're going to get to another part in the contract where you have inspections. As is irrelevant. You can do a contract on an as is contract, whatever. People still have the ability to do an inspection, request repairs, and get out of a contract. If I write an as is contract, I'm expecting that means that the seller will make no repairs, right? If I'm buying your house, it's as is. That means that I'm allowed to do an inspection. I can even ask for a credit, but what it means is that I'm not going to ask you to do the repairs. That's generally what it means. And there's no warranties or whatever. Usually it's buyer beware on anything that they're buying. Again, inspections is a negotiation. Some people on the buy side use it as a tactic to give you a full price or even over full price offer and then cut down the price later using a credit. I do recommend credits, just don't get hosed by this negotiation, okay? So if you're somewhat aware of construction, you can kind of figure out what the pricing is on some of these items. We'll usually put a price sheet together, get a bid on it from our crews that we have. So if you don't have them, it might be a little bit difficult. And then we will basically offer them a credit. Why do we offer them a credit instead of using our own crews to do the work? Well, 1, liability, and 2, convenience. I don't want to replace that fan and then you come back and tell me this isn't a good fan and it hold up closing. How about I give you the money to do it, you fix it on your own terms. Until then, that money can go towards closing costs or whatever you want, right? That's how we like to handle it. And kind of keeping our sellers and ourselves, safe in that aspect. And yeah, so keep liability in mind within reason. The other side of that liability is how much financial liability you have. Because let's say somebody comes in and says, hey, the inspection report shows that the AC unit is bad. In our market, we can get a 2.5 ton unit for about $4,000. Okay, I'll give you the credit to do it. I don't want the credit. Okay, then I need to make sure I get a full, pretty much unconditional approval before I install that AC unit, right? Or I can have it paid at closing and then they'll put it in like within the week, right? Scheduled after you close. We don't mind doing it on flips, but for a seller, it's $4,000 on an AC. If the $4,000 isn't a big deal to them, it's not just that. There's more money involved with other things, right? It's never just an AC ever. So you don't want yourself to have a bunch of money out and then that buyer at the end of the day say, hey, so the lender told me I'm actually not able to get approved because I just bought a car or something ridiculous, right? So I can't buy your house. I'm sorry you're out however much money you're out, but it is what it is. That's the business. You don't want that, right? So make sure, again, going back to those timelines, you know that. And if you're a seller that's been stuck in that position and you had an agent, I'm sorry, that's why you got to either hire the right person or know this stuff and do it yourself. All right, so these are basically your 3 easy steps to closing, right? The words you're going to want to hear are clear to close, that's the top one, loan approvals, and title getting the documents. So your clear to close is basically the magic word that everything's been passed and you're good. You're waiting for the title company to tell you that. Loan approvals are basically the step right before that. And kind of in between, once the clear to close happens, title company has to get what's called a closing or loan package for them to be able to close the deal and know where to send all the money and where the money's coming from on the buyer side and all of that stuff. Closing is actually much easier than any of the other parts. So again, if you're a seller selling your house on your own, or if you're an agent that's newer and you're watching this and you're wondering why this agent put out this information that's going to cost me business, just know if you're a good agent, it's not going to cost you business. And if you're a seller and you start doing this and you get into real estate, you're going to be better than most of the agents that have licenses. And I hope that helps. If you're in the Jacksonville market or Ponte Vedra or Palm Coast or any of those areas and you want to send business to our sales team, please do. We would love it. Or if you have a property in that area or in this area that you want to sell directly to us, we're always looking for houses and apartment buildings that we can fix up and rent out. So thanks for checking it out. I hope it was helpful. And if you like our content, please subscribe.